Okay, today I'm in Surrey with Lee Mottershead, who is a well-known journalist for the Racing Post and also Journalist of the Year, I understand, Lee.
Many years ago. I was a boy then.
You still chance to win. Well, you still chance to win it again. Now, you've been with the Racing Post for 22 years.
Yeah.
I had to do a bit of research on you because there's lots of stuff that you unearth if you Google.
Dangerous.
Dangerous. I did find out that there was a bit of a spat in 2012. I don't think face to face, but at least in words, with Ryan Moore. Now, can you tell us a little bit about that? And is it all okay now?
Yeah. So it seems a long time ago now, but I remember writing something about Ryan. It might have been, I can't remember if my Monday column started then, so it might have been in the column. But he, I thought, had been a little bit awkward towards interviewers, broadcast interviewers. I think it was, during Glorious Goodwood, and I wrote something to that effect, and Ryan responded in his Betfair column, sort of challenging what I'd said. We clearly had a different point of view, and that sort of kicked off on Twitter, especially with a lot of people sort of saying, "Oh, go on, Ryan, knock him down." But no, it was absolutely fine. I then sort of spoke to Ryan not long after he put out his Betfair column, and we spoke about it, and yeah, we had different points of view, but we were perfectly civilised about it. And listen, Ryan is outstanding. He's the best jockey in the world, I'd say, but he's not someone who embraces doing certain aspects of media interaction, and not everybody will do. Some people love it, some people don't do. That's just the way people are. And I wouldn't hold that against him. All I dislike is if I perceive someone being a little bit rude. And I think generally Ryan now is very good. He gives good post-race interviews on TV often. And what I would say as well is that I don't mind upsetting people, in the sense that I think as a journalist, even in a racing journalist, all we're doing really is writing about that old line about horses running around a field. But I don't mind upsetting people if I feel there's a reason or a good reason to challenge what they've done or said. I think my job as a journalist is not to be loved by everybody. Listen, we all like being liked, and it's always nice when people say nice things about you and you think they like you. But as I've done a lot of work in the last year or so about the bloodstock sales ring and issues within there that I feel have needed badly to be looked at, because I think there's been behaviour within sales ring that has been lamentable, and a panorama expose waiting to happen. Now, that hasn't made me very popular with people, a lot of people within that bloodstock community and within the sales community. But again, my job isn't to be popular, it's to do my job. And if I think something needs to be said, particularly as a columnist, I'll say it.
You've obviously been doing that right, working 22 years with the Racing Post. Now, talking before the interview, you told me that was your first job.
Yeah. What's
been your background previous to that? Because it's not everybody's ambition to write for the Racing Post. So what did...
No, so again, I had one of these sort of racing backgrounds that had no direct racing in it, but it had racing on the TV. So I pretty much almost learnt to read by reading the racing pages of the newspapers. I was very obsessed with the sport from a young age. I remember back when I was going to primary school, we didn't have a video recorder in those days, and I would rush home from school, and if there was midweek racing on the TV, my mum, who stayed at home as a housewife, she would have done an audio recording on a tape recorder of the commentaries of Peter O'Sullivan or Graham Good, and I would then get home. The first thing I would do is I'd press play on the recordings, and I'd listen to the Nell Gwynn Stakes or whatever it was that took place that afternoon, and absolutely adored it. And I remember buying the very first edition of the Racing Post when it was 25p with Sonic Lady on the front page. There were times when if I had enough pocket money, I'd buy the Racing Post and the Sporting Life. So I've always adored it. My old man used to love watching racing, took me to Haydock Park as a kid because I grew up in Lancashire in Blackburn. So racing was always my passion. and always what I wanted to do when I became a big boy. But I don't think I knew for sure what I wanted to do within racing, and that only became more structured later on.
So how did it become more structured? What did you focus on it at some point, or did the Racing Post job sort of come up as a stroke of luck?
Yeah, definitely a stroke of luck. So I went to uni in York, partly because I thought the course was good for me. Turned out to be not quite as exciting as I thought it would be, but mainly because you had York, you had Wetherby, you had Pontefract, you had Doncaster, so I spent a lot of time going around race courses. And when I graduated from uni, or before I graduated from uni, I wrote an awful lot of letters to an awful lot of people. Didn't get a huge number of responses. One guy who did respond was Colin Russell, Racing Post Northern writer, wrote me a lovely letter back. But I followed lots of letters seeking sort of placement, seeking work, and nothing really came of it. And so I'd have been in the summer of the year when I graduated, so 1996, and I'd pretty much given up on getting a job in racing. I applied for a job as an estate agent in Preston, was interviewed for that, and while I was waiting for an answer on that one, I noticed there was a job advertised in the Racing Post advertising department for a classified sales manager, and I'd no background in sales, but I thought I'd apply for it anyway, because what harm could it do? And I was asked to go for interview, not for that job, but for the job of the lady who'd got that job, so a junior job in the sales team there. Went for interview for that one, didn't get the estate agency job, but I got the Racing Post job, and I would have been a really rubbish estate agent.
So that was a stroke of luck. Now, you're not just a writer, you're a broadcaster, I say writer, and you're an author. Which do you prefer?
Well, you say I'm a broadcaster. That's a very flattering description. I make occasional contributions to TV and radio. I used to present for ATR. Used to do some racing news programs, etc. That's quite a while ago now. Enjoy doing bits on radio. Really enjoyed doing those broadcasting gigs because I find them enjoyable. But I think ultimately, I think you sort of you do have to have realistic understanding of what you're good at and what you're not so good at. And I know I could never do what Nick Luck or Ed Chamberlain do, because I just wouldn't be as good at them at doing it. I enjoy contributing, but I know probably where my limits lie. Whereas I think with writing, with journalism, that is a much more natural discipline for me. That's very much my core job. That's what pays the mortgage, and I'm very lucky because for Racing Post, I am fortunate to do a wide range of different roles, from being a news hound to being a racecourse reporter, to being a feature writer, to being an interviewer, to wandering around Trundle Hill trying to find interesting people say nice funny things, which I really enjoy doing, and ghostwriting and doing books. So I am immensely blessed and fortunate to do all that.
I'm interested in the ghostwriting. The latest one, I recently interviewed Colin Tizard briefly. You've been involved with a book about cue cards and also Persian Punch. What I didn't know until you told me earlier was you also ghost wrote a book on Richard Hughes and Tomo, both of which, anybody looking at it, Richard Hughes and Tomo both wrote. Now, how's that feel, for starters, and how's the process work, ghostwriting?
So ghostwriting, it's become quite a significant part of what I do, particularly through the summer, because I've been doing Hughes' column in the Racing Post for a number of years. With him in particular, because he's the guy I've done most of it with. It's about developing a relationship, really. So with Richard, I remember a long time ago now, we did a double-page spread in the Racing Post about how to ride Goodwood, which is obviously when he was still riding, and it was a really insightful, interesting piece that shone a light on Goodwood and its intricacies. And I think people read that and thought this guy could be actually a columnist, because he's clearly got views. So we started doing that back way when he was writing, back before he became champion jockey. And you develop a relationship with someone doing that. So I think with him in particular, he invests a lot himself in the column. So people shouldn't just think it's a case of his name's on it, but he's got nothing to do with it. That's absolutely not the case. You know, we speak every week, often more than once in a week, and we'll discuss ideas. And he'll talk to me, and we will talk for maybe half an hour to an hour on the column, and then I will send him a version back of what he said, obviously adding a bit of journalistic, flair to it. But then he will always come back to me and say, no, I like that, don't like that, I like that, don't like that, you put in a joke there, that's rubbish. So we work really well together. And again, that was the same with the book. So with him and with Tomo, who are very, you'd be surprised to learn, different characters. They're not quite the same people, and they've lived different sorts of lives. It's really about getting a voice, ghostwriting. It's about trying to have the reader read it and not think that somebody else has actually been sat in front of the laptop. Because they are authentic autobiographies in the sense that you would spend hours with the person, and you get their life on a dictaphone. But not everybody can write, you know. I couldn't put up a brick wall, I couldn't do millions of things. And I think it would be naive to think that everyone that has an autobiography has written it themselves, because not everybody can write a book. But you need to get their voice. And with Richard, I'd been doing it for an awful long time, with him in the column before we did the book, and I felt I knew his voice really well, and I could write as him. And that was a fascinating process, because anyone that's read his book, he's very open, very honest about the issues that come up in his life with things like alcoholism and many other issues. So he was very good. And then with Tomo, which some people think is the most shocking thing I've ever done. It's actually one of my most enjoyable jobs. I like Derek. And I've been watching Derek on TV since I was a kid. So you almost feel like you know the person. And I remember, sitting down with Tomo talking about his life, and it was real fun. And it was a bit, with Tomo's book, I got to an 80,000 word written impersonation of Derek Thompson. I got to write things like, when we're talking about meeting Linda Gray, who played Sue Ellen in Dallas. And I remember writing, I've never met anyone with a better head of hair. Now, what else in racing journalism am I going to have a chance to write that I've never met anyone with a better head of hair than Sue Ellen from Dallas? So, ghostwriting can be a real joy. It can be hard work because you spend an awful lot of time transcribing. So you talk to people a lot, and you spend an awful lot of time playing back the tape, typing everything up, a lot of which you won't use, but you don't know you won't use it until you've got everything together and you know what you will use. So it can be quite a long-winded process, and at times it can be quite frustrating, but it's good crack.